Hello, romance lovers. Today I have a story for you called The Male Leads Are Trapped in My House. Don't forget to support this video with a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new interesting stories. Thank you for watching. It all started out like a typical reincarnation novel. She was a fan of romantic fantasy and died in an accident. Then this unfortunate lady was reincarnated in one of the books she had previously read, and so she became a supporting character with charming pink hair, a luxurious beauty with a fortune. Her current name is Lady Sinclair. The girl's life was going as well as possible. She spent money left and right, not caring about anything. One day, by some ridiculous chance, the lady remembered her past life. The novella in the world of which the lady was reborn was a low-grade book about romance and survival in the apocalypse. Then she made a decision. In a world where almost all of humanity is destined to die in the jaws of monsters, or turn into them themselves, it is imperative to survive. The lady began preparations and created a shelter. Even if she can't save everyone, Lady Sinclair will do everything to ensure that her family and loved ones remain safe and sound. Everything seemed to be going according to plan, but one day the main character's older brother came to visit her. And then the girl stumbled upon the second male character, even though she was planning to live her life away from everyone. The girl is always surrounded by the main characters of the novella. Will she cope with them? The world was plunged into absolute chaos. Someone was calling for help. Someone else's blood was on the lady's shoes, and screams of horror and pain were tearing everyone apart. And yet, just yesterday, this village was a nice place with a big fair. Why is this happening? It seems incredible, but monsters have appeared here. From now on, many will be devoured by them, and then turn into them themselves. But the lady will not give up without a fight. They will not wait. The story began 3 weeks ago. Two girls were reading a newspaper about Lady Sinclair, who was on the front pages of the newspapers. One of them does not find it surprising, because she is the main source of society news. Lady Sherry Sinclair is an incredible beauty and the heiress of a fortune. She delights all the aristocrats, while not being a member of a noble family. The beauty heard two girls talking about her. They saw her, which did not escape the lady's gaze. How she adores these looks, full of adoration. In a fit of narcissism, Sinclair did not see the maid, who was tired of pulling the purchases by hand and wanted to put them in the carriage. The rich lady had already forgotten about the lack of space in the carriage. She understood that it was hard for the maid, so first she had to look around. It was empty, and the lady took up the luggage. She would put it away herself, which would help her own maid. The maid herself was amazed by this. She told the lady that beauty and strength were a wonderful combination. Cherry Sinclair noted that in high society, a woman is not supposed to be strong. In her childhood, the lady was a very sick child. Her parents pitied her and bought her many medicines. And after years of such treatment, the girl not only recovered, but also acquired enormous strength. They packed their groceries and were about to go home. Sherry stopped as if in confusion. The maid was worried, but the mistress reassured her. Everything was fine with her. She was just feeling dizzy, but due to slight dizziness, her foot slipped off the carriage step and the lady fell, hitting her head. Vesta's brain was filled with a flood of memories with terrible pain. Later in the evening, the lady came to her senses in her bedroom. The maid standing nearby relayed the words of the visiting doctor. Mrs. Sinclair has a concussion. When asked how she is feeling, the lady replied that she is fine. The maid offered to call a doctor, but the mistress refused. Sherry asked to bring all the newspapers in the house to the bedroom. Oh no. She remembered who she was and what kind of world this was. This place is a novella that the lady read in her past life. Its title is Love in the Post-Apocalypse World, LMP. In the work, which tells about the end of the world, the main character named Aurora was looking for an antidote. She assembled a survival team of men for this. Overall, a second-rate book with romance in the ruins of the world. It said that some survivors had created special shelters. The size of the latter was associated with the influence of these characters. Aurora took over one of these hideouts and became a powerful person. Sherry's role was to put the life of one of the heroine's love interests at risk. The final stage is her death and transformation into a monster. A typical third-tier character. And in her past life, she was hit by a car. Not the best life either. Is it really possible that the unfortunate lady is destined to die in this world too? The girl will definitely not be able to save the world from the apocalypse. And wherever she runs away, Stop. Run away? But if there is nowhere to go, then you need to be fully armed. The maid brought the newspapers, and the mistress has memories of the past. The lady tried to get up, but the maid reminded her that the doctor had forbidden her to make unnecessary movements. Sherry Sinclair decided to find a shelter where she could hide from the monsters that would start the apocalypse. In the newspapers, a rich lady read about a large funeral of the servants of the Marquis of Casey, who died from an unknown form of plague. The lady realized that there was less than a month left until the apocalypse, so she won't have time to cook and collect everything she wanted earlier. Now she needs to urgently change her way of thinking. The first thing she needs to take care of is food, then a financial cushion, but there won't be any problems there, and finally, a weapon to fight monsters. I had to ask someone for it. It turned out to be the Sinclair family's personal lawyer, Howard Harrison. He asked why my lady needed a weapon. Sherry hesitated but answered, in case of self-defense. What's wrong with that? Harrison had served the Sinclair family faithfully. After her parents died, Sherry entrusted him with all the affairs. She lost her family early and was left alone. Howard demanded to know how exactly she was going to use the weapon. She couldn't help but answer, a lawyer is like an older brother to a lady. The lawyer is interested in what the girl has in mind this time. Sherry realized that he couldn't be fooled that easily. She would be happy if no one had to interfere in her affairs, but if the heiress of the Sinclair family acquired weapons, many men would pay attention to her. And Harrison always acts professionally and prudently. He will be able to get everything he needs without any problems. But the lady said out loud about her desire to take the life of one guy. The lawyer thoughtfully asked, "What is the name of this degenerate?" Sherry understood. From now on, she needs to be more careful. Howard's guardianship sometimes goes beyond all bounds. He starts to dig up the truth. To avoid this, the lady decided to play the heartbroken lady card. She said out loud that she did not want to discuss it. The lawyer obviously would not question her now. Harrison asked what kind of weapon she needed. The lady needed axes, bows, swords, whatever he could find. Howard bowed and declared his intention to find a mentor who would help the lady handle such combat tools. Sherry just wanted to say that she didn't need a coach, but the lawyer refused. He was adamant on this issue. The lady thought that this world didn't have much time left, so she wouldn't have time to study with a teacher. Lady Sinclair also reported the need for a place to store weapons. An armory needs to be built. Howard should do this. He is confident in his abilities, but does not know where to place the complex. Sherry replied that in a town called Brunel. The lawyer did not know about this village. It is located near the capital. Harrison does not understand why exactly there. The lady remembered a girl who lived in a house on the edge of Brunel. Her name was Wanilla, and this city was also mentioned in the novel. Soon, food will become an important resource in the world. The main characters often moved due to food shortages, but one of the men in the book solved the problem. 6 months before Aurora arrived, the Wanilla mansion, located on the outskirts, was a real fortress. The large garden had a vegetable garden, and on one side the house was surrounded by a mountain. Self-sufficiency is the key to survival. That's why Brunel is more suitable as a shelter. Lily remembered that in her past life she was a child of farmers. She has all the necessary knowledge. Harrison is unlikely to live to see that moment. She won't let him die. Sherry pulled herself together and told him everything. Their world will end. A disease that turns people into monsters will soon appear. Lady Sinclair will go to Brunel to survive the end of the world there. The lawyer thought about it, but asked, was she right to stop taking the medicine? If she didn't like the hospital Howard had chosen, let her say so. He'll find another one. In the meantime, let her rest. The lady smiled guiltily. She was joking, and she'd just had such a vivid dream. Sherry thought nervously that the lawyer would now think that she was worried about her parents' deaths and would attribute depression to her. He was worried about the lady, but still. Having met the apocalypse in the clinic, the lady would not have time to prepare anything. The lady assured Harrison that he shouldn't worry so much. She was only telling him about her dream. But would he go with her to Brunel? The girl didn't know much about weapons, so she needed his help. Since the lady feels well, he agrees. The lawyer will send a specialist to Sherry who understands weapons better than he does. The lady wanted to go with him, since Howard is good at solving her problems. He agreed and would consider this trip an excursion. Howard left, and Sherry lost 2 problems at once. When she came to the bank, she demanded to withdraw 100 million gold from the account. The employee asked again about the amount, and she answered affirmatively. When, if not now, will she be able to hold such an impressive sum? However, the lady is not sure that she will have time to spend all the money. The banker was shocked that she was the one who decided to withdraw such a large sum. It was a formality. But why did she need these funds? Sherry chuckled and said, in case of the apocalypse. The banker was filled with doubts. He asked if the lady needed help. If she was being threatened and asked for money, he would tell Harrison. Or maybe the casino was to blame for Lady Sinclair's case? He had heard that she had lost a couple of her diamond mines, but he had not supposed that it had gone so far. The lady replied, Mr. Morton, the banker, was mistaken. The money was needed to open a business on another continent. The banker knows about the many trading companies of the Sinclair family. And yes, until recently, Sherry ran a casino. At first glance, it is a place where the rich spend their fortunes. The casino was a source of valuable contacts and information. As a result, there were soon long lines of people wanting to get in. The lady thought that Morton had decided she needed funds to start another such establishment. Sherry hadn't looked there for a long time, but soon she had to sell this business. She wondered why the banker was asking so many questions. It was as if she was being interrogated. Or did Morton consider the lady frivolous? The banker immediately backed out. Of course, he would immediately give the order to prepare the money. Sherry was happy. She would get her money. At the same time, the feeling that the lady was deceiving the bank did not go away. Soon, when the virus will be raging everywhere, money will lose its value. She must spend it wisely and quickly prepare for the future. The girl will collect everything that will be useful for survival. Sherry saw an article in a printed publication about a monster appearing in the city. The banker asked if the client was interested in the publication. If she needed the newspaper, let her take it. The lady thanked the employee of the institution. On the night the article was published, the novel first mentions the appearance of monsters, an incident in which Aurora will encounter a monster. She was adopted by the Lancaster family and appeared at night on Rue Notion, 61. There she received a letter stating that a certain person knew about her origin. Arriving at the address, she met a monster that had been starving for several days. That's how it was in the novel. Sherry almost forgot. That's where that thing appeared. It was about the herb elfinus. When used, it will act as an antidote and protect against the effects of one bite. And why this herb has such an effect is unknown, as is the reason why it grew in this building. Novella was abandoned. She should have taken it with her before her trip to Brunel. In the book, Aurora didn't know about this effect, so she didn't take the herb with her. And then she regrets it when she finds out about its healing potential. Sherry won't repeat the heroine's mistakes. She'll go and rip out Elfinus. Sherry, wearing a cloak with a hood on her head, walked down a dark street. She needed the Elfincus herb, but she was afraid of the possibility of running into monsters. She had only read about them, but had never seen one in real life. The lady was not far from home. She had to be on her guard. She saw two men ahead. If an infected monster bites a human, it will become infected and turn into a monster. Those who turn into undead gain traits that are unique to them, but they have one common sweetness: weak eyesight. Therefore, monsters rely on hearing. They also cannot stand heat and fire. Sherry took an axe just in case and made a Molotov cocktail for old time's sake. If the monster appeared, the girl would throw a cocktail at it to disorient it, and then finish it off with an axe. She heard a scream. Who was screaming? Had the monsters broken free? She remembered the analogies from the novel, but a silver-haired girl stood near the fence, stepping on the edge of the cloak and barely falling to the ground. Her bright amethyst eyes darted around. The girl hoped no one noticed her. She was standing in front of the house at 61 Notion, and she had a letter in her hands. Sherry realized that Aurora was in front of her. According to the novel, this lady lost her memory, and at the age of 15, she was accepted into the Lancaster family. The Duke of Lancaster and her elder brother loved her with all their hearts, but she still wanted to know the secret of her origin. Sherry watched Aurora. In her place, she would have been burning with curiosity too, but what is she doing at the gate? Trying to pick the lock? How amateurish and cute at the same time. Sherry would rather wait until the girl runs into the monster and then breaks into the building. At the same time, Sherry did not understand how much Aurora was hanging around there. so it was better to act ahead. She decided to grab the grass and then run as fast as possible. Lady Sinclair felt like the mansion was dead. She knew that the infected had been sitting there for several days. She heard a sound and turned around. But it was not a monster, but an ordinary box that fell to the floor. There was a strange engraving on it. Sherry opened it, and inside was the herb elfinus. The girl grabbed the box and decided to leave. Suddenly, she saw a man ahead, who was going down the stairs. The guy didn't look very good. The poor guy noticed Sherry and asked to help him. Where did he come from? There shouldn't be anyone here except Aurora. The girl agrees to help him, but the man needs to calm down. The lady's gaze rose to the ceiling, where she saw a monster that was once a man. Sherry asked the guy, was he bitten by this creature? He answered, no, the monster was sitting tied up in the room. The lady wondered, is there supposed to be someone else here? The guy said that he hadn't talked to his younger sister for a long time, came here, and then the monster went down, and the guy immediately jumped out onto the street. Sherry was even glad about this. He would only get underfoot. She grabbed her sword. It was time to practice survival. At this time, Aurora opened the gate and entered the yard. The same scared guy who was screaming about monsters flew past her like the wind. She entered the house and saw Sherry fighting the monster. Everything happened quickly, and the guest thanked Lady Sinclair for saving her life. If it hadn't been for the latter, the lady who came wouldn't have known what to do. The girl took the newly made warrior's hand and called her guardian angel. Sherry, trying to hide her face, asked if Aurora had seen the guy running out of the house. Yes, she had seen him. He had sped away down the alley. Sinclair sighed calmly. He had managed to escape, thank God. Sherry may have encountered something she didn't expect, but she got the elfinus herb. She even killed the monster, and no one was hurt. The girls approached the gates, where onlookers were starting to gather. They were the only ones missing. Sherry realized she had to leave before a lot of people came here. And then some guy in uniform shone a flashlight in their faces and threatened them with a gun. He recognized Aurora and asked why she was here at such a late hour. Aurora, in turn, asked what he was doing there. Sherry was delighted by the man's pleasant appearance, but remembered something. The man explained that he was on patrol when he received the call. This was Aurora's older brother, Eden Duncan Lancaster. He is the most collected of the novel's heroes, the main male character with antibodies to the virus. Who would have thought that Sherry would meet the one she wanted to see? Aurora explained that Sherry had saved her from the monster. She was scared. If her identity was revealed, she would end up in the police station, where she would waste a lot of time. Eden offered to go with him to the police, which was what the lady was afraid of. Sherry didn't want to be seen at all now. Eden and his partner saw the monster that Lady Sinclair killed. They were shocked. Did she really eliminate that thing? Sherry didn't waste any time and ran away. Those who remained near the monster shouted after it and asked for its name. But Sherry didn't need it. She didn't intend to get involved with them. Eden rushed after her. The girl didn't understand how it happened. The policeman shouted that she should have stayed where she was, as he had asked. He was grateful for saving his sister, but when a witness flees the scene of a crime, suspicions naturally arise. Sherry ran because Eden immediately asked her to take off her mask and give her name. Who would have thought that he would abandon his sister to her fate and rush after her? He eventually caught up with her and led her away. Eden. I wonder if the lady will remain silent. She must be a secretive character if she is so afraid to take off her mask. But it's okay. The interrogation will just be tougher. The lady felt his grip. He will deliver her to the police station in no time. Suddenly, something strange sounded, and the couple raised their heads up. Taking advantage of the confusion, Sherry broke free and ran away. Eden only looked after her. The lady thought with a smile. Something happened to Aurora. And will he run? The next day, Sherry was sitting at home and was indignant. Her brooch had come off at the wrong time and was left in Eden's hands. This decoration was important to her. How could she steal it now? This accessory was the last gift from her father before his death. Why did she even put it on yesterday? Sherry thought the policeman wouldn't guess that the brooch belonged to her. But there were her initials, but who knows who could be called that. The maid came and reported a call from Eden. Lady Sinclair is surprised. What does he want from her? The maid relayed the policeman's words. This is a secret matter, so they need to talk in person. The mistress asked her to answer that she allegedly went on a trip. The maid will do everything as the lady says. Having handed her today's newspaper, the housekeeper asked if the mistress had finished packing. Sherry had done it, and Suzanne, the maid, had got ready. She is also ready, but first she will inform the head maid about her upcoming trip and will be ready. Sherry calls Suzanne an angel from heaven, since she agreed to go to Brunel without any problems. When the lady said that they were there for a long time, the maid immediately understood the mistress and intended to be there no matter what happened, and for as long as it took. C. Harry is flattered and thanks the worker for her loyalty. Suzanne was slightly embarrassed. Where the mistress goes, there she goes. Sinclair will wait for the maid at Brunel. They hugged. Sherry decided to read the article about what happened yesterday. The author wrote about a mysterious case at Notion, 61. Lancaster almost became a victim. The lady remembered that scream. She thought that they would think that it was Aurora screaming. They didn't write about the monster. Someone is deliberately hiding all the details. There is definitely someone behind all this. There were a lot of onlookers there, but the newspaper didn't say a word about the monster. If Sherry wants to open everyone's eyes without evidence, it risks being known as crazy. Even Harrison advised her to see a doctor. Others would not be so polite. The only one that comes to mind is the Marquis of Casey, but he is no longer alive. There is almost no time left, so first she must go to Brunel. And Eden was at the crime scene and read in the newspaper about how Lady Sinclair withdrew 100 million gold from the bank. Her name, as always, is on the front page. Although it is not uncommon for the rich to do this, it is strange that the richest family, which usually does not need additional funds, does this. What is Sherry preparing for? Eden saw the approaching inspector. The inspector reminded Eden in a teacher's tone that it would be better to give up this business. But he couldn't, because he was one of the first to arrive here. The inspector saw a newspaper in his colleague's hands. He asked if he read articles about Sinclair. Eden remembered how a lady had called home recently, and his partner's words. It seemed as if he was obsessed with this lady. The inspector assured him that it was better not to interfere in Sinclair's affairs. It would not end well. A colleague reminded him that Eden would soon be promoted to chief of police. He shouldn't tarnish his reputation by getting involved in someone else's business. Lancaster had previously given up his dukedom to serve in the police. The father was not very pleased with his son's choice, but agreed, because thanks to the noble family, it became clear to everyone that Eden would not stay as a simple investigator for long. Aurora's brother reminded him that he was not here for the titles. If he needed it, Eden would inherit his father's title. And the guy told the inspector that the newspaper didn't mention a word about the monster they had met yesterday. Colleagues explained the reason for this phenomenon. The management ordered to cover up the tracks and keep the press quiet to avoid panic while the investigation was underway. Eden headed off to the side. He informed the inspector about receiving data on the import of weapons from another kingdom. Eden is calm. Since the inspector has arrived here, he will be able to take on a new case. His partner is interested in who his informant is. When saying goodbye, Lancaster declared his readiness to find out. Sherry looked at the map. From Betton, the capital, go to Westmore, then to Hornduff, then to Kent. That is 4 transfers before arriving at the last one. If you take a carriage and cut the route, it will arrive in Brunel by a secret route. This way all the railway stations will be bypassed. At last, the lady arrived at her final destination, Brunel, the place of her future refuge. She worked so hard to get here. And the road took as little time as it could have. It's more beautiful here than the lady thought. The town is tiny, but there's a store, a vegetable stand, a first aid station, an armory, and much more. There's everything you need to survive. You can turn the whole town into a camp. It would be nice to buy the whole city, but not everything in the world can be bought with money. In the distance, Sherry spotted the house she would live in. It looked gloomy. I wouldn't be surprised if monsters lived there. The novel said that Wanilla lived in this house. This is definitely it. When the girl read the book, she was surprised how the mansion could become a stronghold. Now it is clear why it lasted for so long. The clan in front, and the foothills behind. Sherry didn't know about Wanilla's purchase of this house. When the mayor told the lady about it, she decided to personally negotiate the purchase with Wanilla. She was late, So the lady felt uneasy. Something might happen. In the evening, Eden detained a man and threw him to the ground. He did not understand why this happened to him. The policeman asked the man not to be surprised because he knew everything perfectly well. Doesn't the detainee know that in the kingdom of Graydon, ordinary citizens are forbidden to secretly buy weapons? He was caught in the act of making a deal with an arms dealer from Brightwood. The weapons were smuggled in. Why resist? Eden reminded that the buyer ran away when he was caught. Too many coincidences. The detainee mentioned that the weapons needed to be delivered to a certain small town. The detainee denied it. He allegedly knew nothing since he was just a delivery man. He buys and then delivers things. The middleman rose from the ground at Eden's behest and said that Howard was behind the deal. Harrison. Lancaster smiled. It means the weapon was bought on orders from Sherry Sinclair, and his suspicions about him may seem strange. The cop told Inspector Marcel about receiving a tip, but Eden saw Harrison secretly meeting with Jose, an expert on the black market of weapons. The man is from Brightwood, and Lancaster has been following him for a long time. The policeman is sure Howard was acting on someone's orders. The Duke's son remembered wanting to talk to Sherry on the phone, but she wasn't home. The family heiress had withdrawn 100 million gold from the bank and left. Could this be considered a simple coincidence? The detainee reported rumors he had heard. Sherry had left for Brunel today. Eden knew nothing about this town. The gun buyer explained. It was a small village where there was not even a railway station. The policeman did not understand why a rich lady left her luxurious life and went to the backwoods, where there was not even a train stop. If she bought a large batch of weapons? No, he would not ignore it. Sherry Sinclair was sitting at a tavern table and reading a newspaper. The journalist wrote about a rich heiress withdrawing 100 million gold from a bank under the pretext of opening a foreign business. The author wondered where the lady would invest such funds. Others wrote about her disappearance and considered options for where she could have escaped. The theft of Sherry was not excluded. She grinned. What kidnapping? She left herself. Today's newspaper was not much different from the others. Let them gossip, the world will end anyway, and they will not have time to write tabloid articles. Sherry thought about Howard. He was obviously aware of the money situation. Well, he would scold the lady and forgive her as usual. Where was Wanilla? Maybe he would come today. Ahead of him, some guy in uniform was talking to an old lady. Sinclair noticed him. What an interesting officer. It was clear at first glance. He was a handsome man. His hair seemed to be woven from thin golden threads, and his lips were pink and inviting. He was buttoned up and in full dress. This is just her type. The girl wonders what such a handsome man is doing in this wilderness. She looks at him and recognizes him. No way. Eden comes up to her and asks permission to sit next to her because there are no seats. Sherry decided to play the naive girl and quickly forget about all suspicions. She does not know why Eden came, but in case of questions about the incident at Notion 61, she will say that she knows nothing. The policeman sat down on the table and said that he had wanted to see the lady for a long time, but he had not expected to meet her here. Trying to be innocent, Sherry asked if he knew her. Eden said her name. The lady is a popular person. They write about her in the newspapers. Sherry thought about it. Is he checking her out? Can't he just ask her straight out what she wants? At least then the girl could justify herself. Then the cop identified himself, adding that he was a Benton police officer. Yes, everyone knows that. Eden is known for his determination and desire to see any task through to the end. No criminal in the kingdom can hide from this guy. That's why he was nicknamed Benton's Wild Dog. And Wild Dog was on her trail. Sherry made a surprised face and said, Wow, Eden Lancaster? He's often written about in the papers. What is he doing here? The Duke's son is sure his fame is not comparable to her. The officer answered the question with a question. He wondered what the lady wanted in such a remote place. Sherry told him about her intention to buy a country house, but now it was his turn to answer. It's simple. He was assigned here. Does he really think Sherry will believe it? A police officer from the Lancaster family assigned to serve in the village? Yes, exactly. According to rumors, a crime is being prepared here. A woman approached them. She apologized for interrupting the conversation, but which of them was going to buy the house on the hill? Sherry happily raised her hand. Finally, she had come. So timely. The woman will give her the key. The stranger's name is Wanilla Eddie Laskin. She is the former owner of the mansion. The lady thought that her new acquaintance was colder in reality, although you can't tell by her name. Sherry said she was glad to see them and asked, "Did she sign the purchase and sale agreement?" The lady thinks the house is already hers. Eden came up to her and asked, "Why does the heiress of Sinclair need an abandoned house?" The lady was indignant. Let him speak more quietly, or is he going to tell everyone that she is from such a family? Eden is perplexed. Is this forbidden? Of course, she doesn't need any fuss. Wanilla asked them to calm down. She only cares about money. Sherry still admired the former mistress of the house. It seems that she is a true slave of capitalism. Eden saw a strange object at Wanilla. She explained, "It is a dead bird." She is a hunter, so she shot the prey to sell. It wasn't stated directly in the novel, but Wanilla apparently survived 6 months in the mansion not because of the strong walls of the building. She had the knowledge and skills needed to survive in any conditions. Sherry immediately wanted to hire Wanilla for the shelter. The huntress reminded that the house was on the outskirts of the city, so she would not advise buying it. But since Mrs. Sinclair paid the entire amount, she should not think about returning it. The buyer explained. She bought this property at her own discretion. Wanilla will not be in the city for long, so if she has any questions, she can contact them, but not for free. A nice face will not save Sherry from additional payments. Instead, Sherry asked if there was any information she should know about the mansion. Were there any hidden rooms or hiding places to provide long-term shelter? Wanilla couldn't remember anything like that. It was strange because in the novel, Sherry read about how the hunter described the fortress as special. It was good for survival, but there was nothing remarkable in the plans she saw. Maybe the house was called self-sufficient because of its location alone? She also didn't understand why Eden was following her. He should be in the capital with Aurora when the apocalypse began. The only explanation is that he found out that the brooch belonged to Sherry. The lady asked him directly, "Why is he following her?" He answered, "The house is far away, and the way can be dangerous. And this place perfectly fits the description of a secret storage of weapons or illegally obtained funds." The girl noted, if he was interested in the mansion, he would have brought his people. She remembered asking Harrison to buy a gun, and he promised to find someone who would teach her how to handle warheads. It dawned on the lady. The policeman wasn't there for the brooch. Eden asked with a smile, did his interlocutor suddenly find a good reason not to let him into the mansion? Sherry realized that in the case of the brooch, she would have played the fool. But with the weapon, it wouldn't work. She would be accused of a crime that was severely punished by law, and then all her efforts would go to waste. The lady screamed mockingly. Where had anyone heard of a strange man visiting the house of an unmarried lady? Eden had just reminded about his profession when the lady beat him to it. It doesn't matter. A man is a man. Lancaster. That's true, but don't turn everything around in such a light. But Sherry didn't calm down. The girl screamed that if there was no warrant, then all men were strangers and lustful beasts. After a while, the businesswoman admired her acquisition. This place would become her home for the next 2 years, just as she imagined. A large mansion, but abandoned. How could she clean it all up on her own? But no, Sherry would cope and build herself a happy home. She didn't know then that in the future, the cottage would forever go down in history. Knew about it now. She would have called the property differently. Sherry looked at the plan of the house, a fountain in front of the central entrance and a garden opposite. Next to the latter, a well and some kind of warehouse. The cure will be invented in 2 years, if not more. To survive until then, it is necessary to make the shelter completely self-sufficient. The garden is really big, as Wanilla said, planted in it. A strong wall must also be built to prevent intrusion from the outside. And then Sherry noticed some writing in the corner of the plan. Something about Brunel and Notion, but the latter is a capital street. The girl then decided to ask the former owner what it meant. The lady decided to find herself a room and went inside. Sherry picked one, but it needs to be furnished with good furniture. The girl found a fireplace, and in it, human bones and clothes. What a horror. Why did they burn these things? It doesn't seem very cozy. Maybe she should leave the cleaning for later? But there is no time to relax. This is her home already. Sherry cleaned and washed for several hours and passed out. This is a nightmare. She can't cope alone. Maybe she should call someone from the locals for help? They are unlikely to recognize her. Lady Sinclair decided to contact Harrison. It turned out that not a single phone was working, and the lady sent a letter. Survival is a hard thing. But how did it happen that even in the neighboring village there is no means of communication? A small village woman approached the girl and offered to buy a flower and a newspaper. Sherry was touched. Of course, she will buy everything and at the same time read the news. The press wrote about the despondency of high society from Sherry's departure Sinclair, not interesting, and about the Saygrave genus associated with ancient cultures. Saygrave clan is a family that is the stuff of legends, big as fairy tales. Heroes ready to protect the world, the pillar of all humanity. Sherry smiled. If only they existed. How would everything turn out then? The girl is sure that these people would definitely rid the world of the virus and save everyone. In a dreamy impulse, the lady did not notice how the Eden officer sat down next to her. He asked, "Does the lady believe in fairy tales?" She wonders what he's doing here. Conducting an investigation. Yes, how could Sherry forget about this? Unexpectedly, Wanilla brought her a glass of orange juice. The businesswoman is surprised. How did she end up here? Wanilla, it turns out, works part-time. Sherry is dumbfounded. The huntress doesn't want to tell her anything. She just rudely demanded a tip. Yes, this is not how the lady imagined Miss Laskin. Sherry decided to ask the former owner of the house about the inscription on the map. Wanilla examined the document. According to her, Brunel is the name of the city. Notion is a street in the capital. But she doesn't know what Simul and Hagu are. The handwriting is not that of a hunter. She doesn't know what it's about. It was written by her father. The woman inherited the property from him. Sherry assumed that the parent gave his daughter the house in Brunel. Information about the mansion would be useful to Sherry. It's a pity that nothing more can be found out. Wanilla did not rule out that the inscription on the plan is related to the house itself. Yes, but Notion is the name of the street. Nothing matches. Miss Laskin remembered the house on Notion. It also belongs to her. Eden intervened in the conversation, reminding about Hagu. It is also a street. It is located near the station in the city of Westmore. The girls looked at him. Was he really eavesdropping all the time? At these words, Wanilla remembered another house of hers, in Westmore. Sherry wondered if she knew anything about the numbers indicated in the plan. Miss Laskin turned her head away in displeasure, looking like a schoolgirl who had been called to the board and scolded. She knew nothing about numbers. The lady wasn't upset, but does Wanilla know any guys to help with the cleaning? Sherry explained that she had to throw out a lot of old things, and she couldn't do it alone. That's why she needed help, preferably someone who could keep his mouth shut. Miss Laskin had such acquaintances, too. The huntress asked if she should give her acquaintances the contact details of Lady Sinclair. Of course. The lady realized that she had wasted her time on the inscription if it only named the Laskin family's holdings. Eden officer stayed with her. He reported that due to the lady's unpredictability, he began reading newspaper articles about her. He found an interesting article in which the author wrote that the businesswoman was the worst cricketer in history. Where did he dig this up? The girl asked if he was really interested. He asked if the lady didn't play this game. She had been practicing at the club for a long time, so she must have some skills left. Sherry angrily asked her interlocutor to reread the article, where everything was written in black and white. She played poorly, and the club accepted her because her parents paid a large sum. The girl didn't know about it and thought that she got into the organization thanks to her skills. The club only needs a famous name from her, like everyone else. Sherry is not surprised by this. They communicate with her only for this reason. Eden sat there, frowning. The girl thought he was ashamed of asking such a stupid question. Although the guy was kind, albeit stubborn, it was not for nothing that Lancaster was the older brother of the main character. The girl no longer worries about the club. That was a long time ago. Due to her reputation, she is often perceived incorrectly. For example, she can be accused of possessing contraband weapons. Eden looked at her with extreme surprise. The girl got up from the table. She had to go. There was a lot of work to do, so she wished the officer luck in the investigation. As she left, Sherry understood perfectly well that her manipulations would not work on him. She's no pushover either. She'll survive the apocalypse and won't fall into the hands of the police. Why isn't Harrison in touch? Is he so swamped with work? The girl found out about a phone update at the Quinta station and went there. The station is old, but clean and cozy. The main thing is that there is a telephone. The maid Suzanne answered her. Sherry happily introduced herself. The maid happily declared how glad she was to hear from her mistress. Suzanne wanted to contact the owner but didn't know how. Sherry reminded her that the maid was supposed to come to her today. Yes, the head maid is sick, and she is replacing her for one day. No problem. Sherry will wait, but she worries whether the maid will be with her tomorrow. She reassured her. She will come tomorrow. She has already bought train tickets. She will be there in the afternoon. Suzanne was interested in the state of health of the lady, her affairs, what she ate. The lady answered that everything was fine, but how are things in the Capital 7? There is no news, and since her departure, the house has been empty. The girl smiled. As the maid said, so he was. Suzanne had been working there for a short time, so she didn't know that the mistress's parents were constantly on trips. The Senkler house was often empty rather than busy. The mansion will remain empty. Sherry asked to speak to Howard, but the maid said he was not there. The lady wondered if he had asked her to pass on anything, since the lawyer had not answered her letter. The maid was surprised. They hadn't received any letters from her. It must have something to do with the recent disappearances of postmen. Now Sherry is surprised? What does Suzanne mean? Howard something. She thinks a monster committed those murders. Life may be going on as usual for Sherry here, but the apocalypse is approaching with every hour. That's why the businesswoman will focus on work, despite Eden. Eden was sitting in his office reviewing criminal cases. He came across a document about the ghosts of Westmore. He remembered how Lady Sinclair had recently told him about this city. Something strange had happened there at this time last year. Every night, screams were heard in Westmore's abandoned house. That's what the police report says. The screams were often accompanied by animal-like howls. Cops who arrived at the scene searched the building, but in the end, law enforcement officers found no traces of humans or animals. There were 10 calls. This number coincides with the number of people who went missing during the same period of time. Since no crime was committed and no victims were found, the case has taken on the color of a typical ghost story. It is strangely similar to the incident on the Rue Notillon. The brooch of the woman Aurora called her savior has initials engraved on it that suspiciously match the name Sherry Sinclair. If you think about it, the color of their eyes is very similar. Personality of Lady Sherry Sinclair is all about front-page news and family wealth. She throws lavish parties and spends large sums of money. Sherry is a girl who spins in the spotlight, creating scandal after scandal. Despite her boastfulness, she is bad at everything she does. A rich lady who is considered, not without reason, unworthy of her name. People like Sherry disgust Eden. She can't be compared to the girl who bravely saved the policeman's sister, even though she ran away from him that time. They can't be the same person. Sherry wouldn't even set foot in that dusty, abandoned mansion. Besides, she secretly smuggles weapons. She's as far from being a diligent citizen as she is from the moon. Eden remembered her words about the club wanting to get a big name from her and nothing more. The policeman suddenly thought about it. He was judging her too biasedly. The cop went outside and heard two women discussing that young lady from the abandoned building. They wondered why the rich woman was dragging a scarecrow. Sherry was indeed carrying structures similar to the typical scarecrows in farmers' gardens. As she approached, the women greeted the lady from the abandoned building and asked a question about the scarecrows. Sherry responded with a hint of humor that she would practice chopping off heads on scarecrows. Both the villagers and Eden were wary. The lady immediately reassured them. It was a joke. There were just sparrows on the plot, so the scarecrows were needed. And she is the fragile capital flower? A nickname for a lady in high society. Sinclair walked on and responded to the greetings of other residents of the town. Two women who were discussing the scarecrow found her eccentric. They are surprised by the rich woman's purchase of a huge house on the outskirts. And she also drags a lot of things there. Does she even appear in the city often? The villagers remembered Eden's presence and turned to him. The women asked the policeman what he knew about Lady Sinclair. Did he know that yesterday she bought up the entire grocery store? And today this rich woman took out everything in the department store. The peasant women are surprised. The young lady buys everything as if she is preparing for war. Where does she get so much money? She lives in a huge wreck on the outskirts. Eden thought that for Sherry, these expenses are like a drop in the bucket. And these village women are apparently the only ones in the country who know nothing about Sinclair. The women paid closer attention to Eden. Maybe he has a crush on this young lady? She is such a beauty. You can tell by the lady that she has never spent a day in worries. One of the gossips suddenly remembered the star. The lady from the abandoned building shines like a star. Eden is surprised. Where do they get such nicknames from? Although in some ways they are right. The village girls didn't lag behind Eden because he looked so cute. They would make such a beautiful couple. The cop noted that they misunderstood him, but that didn't convince the women. He himself follows the young lady everywhere. An inspector approached them and asked with a smile, "What kind of meeting is this?" He noticed how many hunters were gathering at the abandoned house, so he decided to drop in to check. Taking advantage of this, Eden immediately began to leave. The women are sure that he ran to that young lady from the house on the outskirts. Let them think so, but the cop is patrolling the area. Sherry's house, work was in full swing. The hunters sent by Wanilla worked skillfully and quickly. When the trash was cleared out of the room, Sinclair began repairing the wall. The services are not cheap, but the guys don't talk too much. They will soon go back to their villages, so there is no need to worry about safety. So Sherry killed 2 birds with 1 stone. The worker called Lady Sinclair to discuss the matter of making the wall even higher. Yes, the lady also demands that it be strengthened, made thicker, stronger, and more impregnable. Torch holders should be added to the outside. The worker didn't understand why there were holders on the outside, but the girl didn't say that bright light would scare away the monsters, and that fire would drive them away from the walls. Sherry asked how things were going with her other request. The builder replied that the materials had not yet arrived. Once they arrived, they would install everything in a day, so the lady should not worry. She also installed a stone gate so that after it was closed, it could not be broken into from the outside. Sherry is confident that with her incredible power, anything is possible. Soon the construction was finished and everything else was going according to plan. She had to land Elphinus, but suddenly unforeseen circumstances arose. Sherry sat in Eden's office and denied that Elphinus was a drug, as he accused her of. According to the lady, it was just a medicinal plant. The cop read the testimony of the gardener who sold the fertilizer. This seller reported that the girl brought a sprout that looked like a beetle and began to question him. The gardener is sure that it is a narcotic substance. The seller is surprised. Hasn't Eden heard rumors about the strange young lady? According to the law of Eden, is required to investigate any citizen complaints that indicate a crime has been committed. Sherry was angry. The girl was sure the cop had simply found a convenient excuse to put her behind bars. The lady asked what was required of her. To cooperate with the investigation. But she did not understand how exactly. Eden explained. An expert would come, and if he concluded that the accusations were false, the lady would be released. A crowd of people gathered under the windows. Rumors spread throughout the city. People were surprised that the young lady from the abandoned building had been arrested. Although she was supposedly involved in drugs, rumors were flying left and right. Sherry is outraged. This is a misunderstanding. They think she's crazy? Someone was pushing at the entrance, and the couple turned around. It was the expert, and the girl immediately recognized the man. It was Knox Cornelius Ludforshire, is the second love interest in the novel. He is also the younger brother of Howard's late wife, Harrison. The expert's family is known for changing the world of medicine forever by creating anesthesia. Since morphine-containing drugs are often used in the development of anesthetics, doctors can easily identify the drug. And therefore, they often act as specialists. According to the novel, Knox saved people's lives by participating in volunteer expeditions. He also helped mothers and babies, having excellent knowledge of obstetrics. Sherry looked at the policeman and the expert and did not understand one thing. Why did these two, who should be in the capital, come to this wilderness? Eden continued to ask Knox if he was sure about the medicine. The expert assured that the herb is not a drug, but a real medicine. This drug perfectly restores strength. Knox did not expect to see this herb here. Now Sherry was surprised. Had he met Elphinus before? The city's female residents in the crowd now paid attention to the doctor who had arrived. How cute he seemed to them. He is even more famous than Mango Sinclair. The lady is outraged. Her name is Sherry, and she is many times more famous than he is. Eden and Knox turned and looked towards the crowd, which caused another joy. The spectators are inspired because they see a noble gentleman for the first time. Sherry is funny. If only the onlookers knew that a cop is more important in status than a doctor. Eden went to the door and closed it. The lady was wary. Would a police officer really interrogate and torture her? She was innocent. But Lancaster turned to her and suddenly asked for forgiveness. She hadn't expected that at all. Where had Eden's desire to put her in jail gone? The cop explained that a Knox expert had concluded that the plant wasn't a drug. The girl couldn't help but grin. Sherry is used to being treated with prejudice because of all sorts of rumors, but the policeman's gesture was unpleasant. She said that he slandered her without evidence. Eden again asked to forgive him for the insult he had caused. He simply misunderstood the girl. The entrepreneur came to life in Sherry. Such words from the cop speak of great opportunities for her. Lady Sinclair demands help from a policeman as an apology. He is surprised. What will be required of him? The girl brought Eden to her plot. He asks, does she need help planting a garden? Sherry is currently rebuilding a mansion, and there is a serious shortage of workers. Lancaster distracted her, and as a result, the lady wasted a lot of time and now finds herself in a difficult situation. If they refuse, Sherry will invite some reporter who will film a story with accusations against Eden, as if he is detaining innocent citizens without good reason. Sherry asked sarcastically, so the policeman will not refuse to help her? He replied that he made a mistake and was ready to take responsibility for it, as befits a police officer. The girl is happy, but it's time for Mr. Worker to get to work. The cop wonders if the attractive workers are entitled to extra pay. Knox stood behind them, indignant at being ignored for so long. From the side of those two, Eden and Sherry turned around and noticed their guest. He had been following them all this time from the police station. The lady was so engrossed in her conversation with the law enforcement officer that she did not pay attention to the doctor. Knox approached the lady of the mansion and introduced himself. The girl reciprocated. Kissing the lady's hand, Ludforshire said how interested he was to know what had happened, but it would be rude to bombard him with questions. The doctor really wants to talk to the lady. Could she spare him a few minutes of attention? The girl thought, since this is the dance, maybe she should involve this Knox in the work. It is necessary that he keep his mouth shut. Sherry asked the guest to follow her, and let him speak quickly, because the lady has a lot of things to do today. The girl asked Eden to do the gardening and chop some firewood. Knox looked at the girl. For him, she is an immature heiress of a fortune, surrounded by rumors on all sides. But he does not believe them. After all, that day at the gates of the Ludforshire mansion, he saw her true face. Several weeks have passed since Knox first heard about Lady Sinclair. Mysterious events began to occur in Westmere. He was later asked to tell him what kind of plant was in the box. The plant is often found at crime scenes, so police need to find out if the herb is a drug. Law enforcement could be linked to crimes. It was listed as evidence, but not classified. Knox is sure that this herb is not a banned chemical. It is a simple plant that has been at the epicenter of mysterious incidents. Then Knox learned from a policeman that the plant is on Notion, 61. That's why he went there. It was evening. Ludforshire was not far from the abandoned house, and nothing unusual was happening. However, for some reason, a lot of people were gathering near the house, and that was strange. Knox didn't have time to think that there might be something interesting when a guy ran out of the house in fear. Looking closer, the doctor saw a monster in the building. After that, Knox racked his brains for a long time and realized one thing: elfinous grass, mysterious disappearances, a monster that appeared out of nowhere. All these events are clearly connected, and the sight of Che cutting up the monster makes everything more interesting. Sherry thought the doctor was a little strange, but he clearly had a mind of his own, unlike Eden. If you don't take into account the cop's desire to put her in jail, then deep down inside he is a kind person. After all, investigating crimes is the job of the police. She had to be careful with Knox. The three of them entered the mansion. The doctor grinned. A lady really lived here? The girl was surprised. What's wrong? He thinks that such a lady can't live here? The doctor retorted. He is one of those people who believe only his own eyes. The doctor admitted that he was worried about something else. Knox leaned towards Sherry. Why did she start all this? Why does she grow the Elphinus grass? The girl angrily advised the guest not to ask such questions in the future if he wanted to leave home with his limbs intact. The lady advises the doctor to be quiet here. To his questioning attack, she simply warned him, just in case. Sherry decided that she had had enough of interrogations. She had to decide how to shut him up. Knox smiled. Let the lady not worry. The doctor carefully keeps secrets and will not tell anyone a word. But let the lady honestly explain what she intends to achieve with all this. Why did she decide to hide from everyone in this place? The doctor continued. Lancaster won't know anything. It will be their little secret. She wants to share it with someone, right? Knox went even further. He likes girls who don't open their mouths in vain. Sherry looked at him disappointedly. Her guest had a strange sense of humor. Dr. Ludforshire admitted that he was joking, but he would still get an answer from the lady of the house. The girl turned away from the pestering man. Since she has money to burn and nothing to do, she looks for ways not to die of boredom. She made it up on the spot, but it turned out pretty good. Knox laughs. Sherry constantly surprises him with her answers. What mischief did he see in her words? Or do aristocrats dislike those who boast of their income? But the doctor valued sincerity more than cold arrogance. He cannot stand those who lack individuality. Eden came in asking what they were so excitedly discussing. Sherry looked at the cop with displeasure. She had already forgotten about him. These two would drive the girl crazy. After the men stared at each other for a while, Knox pointed out that it would be difficult for them to have a conversation with the cop around. Maybe they should send him away. Eden got angry. Are they planning something suspicious? And the doctor is so close to the lady that he thinks it is possible to tell her all sorts of strange things? This is unacceptable. The girl answered him deftly. The lady wasn't that close to Eden either. And if he reasoned that way, she would also be acting unacceptably by inviting them both to the house where she lived alone. Lancaster tried to remind her that he was a police officer. Knox told the cop straight out that he was annoying him, so he should leave. The fight started to escalate before Sherry's eyes. She remembered that these guys don't like each other. The novella emphasized that. They also attended the same school. As a younger member of a noble family, Knox considers elegance to be the main trait of an aristocrat. For this, Eden, who so easily discarded the title of an ancient and famous family, is an eyesore. For this reason, Knox often teased Eden. The latter, unable to resist provocations, immediately got into a conflict. Over the years, their relationship did not change. The lady hoped that these two would not kill each other. The girl asked Eden to go out for a while and give them a chance to talk to Knox face to face. He tried to resist, but the mistress of the house stood her ground and she would not tolerate any more quarrels. The lady and the doctor will have a quick chat and she will go out to the policeman to continue their work. It won't take long. Upset Lancaster, he left, and Sherry even felt a little sorry for him. Knox thanked the girl for agreeing to talk and offered to sit down. He wondered why Sherry needed the herb Elphinus. She hesitated. Does the doctor know something? She answered out loud that she came across the plant on the street, and then she regretted that she kicked out Eden. The cop may suspect her of God knows what, but Knox is even more annoying with his pressure. The lady remembered about the fight. It won't work with a policeman, but with Knox, it's quite possible. During the conversation, the doctor called his interlocutor an extremely attractive person. The girl in response called him strange. Why does he treat her like that? They are slightly acquainted. There is no reason for this. Knox intends to help her. He does not understand the true intentions of the mistress of the estate, but he is sure that it will be extremely entertaining to watch her. Sherry does not need Ludforshire's services, but he does not agree with her. The doctor continued to question. Didn't she want to plant Elphinus in the garden? The lady was mentally amazed by the guest's observation. He noticed even the seemingly inconspicuous beds. Sherry really wanted to fertilize the soil and then plant the grass along with other seedlings. But according to Knox, Elphinus is not an agricultural crop and cannot be grown using the usual method. The girl is surprised. This is a medicinal plant that only needs simple soil. The doctor noted the uniqueness of this herb, which requires special growing conditions. Sherry wonders. Knox reported that Elphinus feeds on insects. More precisely, its roots suck nutrients from insects. Mostly centipedes and spiders are used as food. The lady is amazed, and she was still going to take this herb. Ox only smiled with her expression. He advised to bury dead insects nearby when planting the roots and water the soil generously. If you repeat these actions periodically, the elfinous grass will grow beautifully. The lady was upset. Why did it have to be her? I really don't want to drag dead bugs around, but there's no escape. Knox asked smugly, "Is the lady still sure she doesn't need help?" She asked disappointedly, "How can he help?" "And the doctor, with the lady's permission, will start growing this very grass. The girl could have handled it herself, but she doesn't like bugs." Knox agrees to take on the insects and then bury them. In addition, the doctor is ready to teach the girl the basics of medicine. She realized that this offer was too tempting to refuse. She was a winner, but what good was Knox doing? He replied that he was interested in the lady's activities, and he only did what he found interesting. The reason is great, but Sherry saw no reason to refuse such support. The lady is counting on Knox because his outstanding talent cannot be overlooked. The man is sure it will be very interesting. Knox assured the lady that she could rely on him. He was not going to deny that he was indeed very talented. Sherry didn't mind. Now she would squeeze all the juices out of him. Let her be afraid at first that the conversation would go in the wrong direction. But in fact, everything turned out for the best. She went outside and saw a hard-working Eden. He wonders, have they talked enough already? And what were these two talking about so much that laughter could be heard in the yard? Sherry was amazed. How attractive the officer was now. A direct hit right to the heart. The man kept talking to the lady, and she, as if enchanted, admired his beauty. The policeman explained. He looked around, noticed the firewood, and remembered how Sherry asked him to chop it. In the end, the job was done. The lady thanked him for the job. He was just thinking about doing it, but was too late. Eden asked what the lady had discussed with Knox. He could hear their laughter even from here. The lady assured him that nothing special. He promised to help with growing plants. The doctor would be visiting her house from tomorrow. This horrified the cop. Then he would visit the owner of the mansion tomorrow. He answered her question. Why? The girl herself asked for help with her work. Sherry thought it was only today. The lady wondered if Eden would help her tomorrow too. Of course. At this point, they said goodbye, and Sherry continued cleaning the huge room. This was hard. She did a lot, and there was no end in sight. The house is really huge. Even with the help of workers, it was not possible to complete it in one day. But in the process, Sherry remembered more important things to do outside and sent people to build a wall. The owner promised everyone a bonus if only they would do everything faster, so the construction would be finished in a couple of days. She looked out the window and saw a policeman and a doctor. Working, everyone was doing their job. It was a wonderful view. That's what a wise use of resources and labor means. The girl opened the window and asked cheerfully how the boys were doing. They promised to finish everything soon. Eden wonders where the lady plans to move the firewood. Some into the house, the rest will be under the canopy outside. Aurora's brother will have to stack the chopped wood and drag it all. Why does the girl need so much fuel? It's enough to burn down the entire city. Sherry smiled sweetly. What horrors is he talking about? There isn't that much firewood. Pretending that she has a lot to do, the lady ran away. While cleaning the hallway, Sherry thought that the policeman was looking for traces of imaginary crimes even when chopping wood. It was pointless. She had there's still nothing to dig. Sherry decided to continue using Eden, and then the apocalypse will come soon. She approached the room where the children's things were kept. The door was open, although Sherry locked it after cleaning. It was clearly just a draft that opened it. The girl went inside and saw a rocking chair. Was it the wind that rocked the chair? The lady was afraid that the novella had turned into a horror film. During the previous cleaning, Sherry came to the conclusion that many different people lived in the house, not to mention that it feels like they all left just recently. If you take this chair, it's dusty, but... And Sherry noticed the inscription. Saygrave? But it's true. They are legendary heroes and defenders, so it's not surprising that people write this name on children's things. Eden called her. Is he done with the firewood? He finished the job, but he wonders what the lady has on her shoulder. Eden, who was watching this with a smile, noticed how he was becoming more and more curious every day. What was the lady doing with this house? Sherry was just about to say that this was her country house when she almost got hit by falling construction materials. She barely managed to jump off before collapsing into the arms of a policeman. The workers were talking. One asked the other to check the materials for integrity, and Miss herself had to watch where she was going. Sherry was shocked as she thought about what had happened. What a romantic novella. Eden angrily shouted that the workers should watch where they were going, because they could hurt the girl now. And they in turn blamed the victim. Sherry was surprised because it was the first time she had seen the guy so angry. They stood up and the lady thanked them. Eden point. He was worried about her possible damage. Sherry wanted to keep him even more. Handsome with an athletic body and useful, if the novella is right, Eden was just about to continue chopping wood when Knox's laughter was heard. "Lancaster, what's going on? When did he become the Tin Woodman?" Sherry looked at the doctor. He had a talent for pissing people off. No wonder the cop keeps trying to give him a hard time. Knox warned the cop to go away, and he still swears in front of the lady. The doctor turned to the lady for approval. Sherry is more interested in whether her guest caught any bugs. He only waved his hands. Mrs. Sinclair is outraged. If he is not able to fulfill his promise, let him vacate the house. But the doctor called himself a man of his word and left to get what he promised. The girl remembered her intention to build a secret shelter. But how, if there are already a lot of people here? Her flight of thoughts was interrupted by Eden. He thinks she should not let her guard down. There is construction everywhere and incidents could happen again. Sherry was indignant. He was always trying to catch her in crimes. And the policeman's guardianship was even frightening. The cop asked with a smile why the lady was silent. She had never heard such words. What made him think that? Ladies always say that. Harrison and Suzanne love the girl and take care of her. Having said that, Sherry realized how much she missed them. Hopefully they are on their way. And at the Sinclair estate, Howard was so busy with the work that Sherry had assigned him that he fell asleep in his office from fatigue. He had a hard time getting the letter from the lady before the police arrived because the postman was killed. In the letter, Sherry asked to answer whether Harrison had gotten her a legal weapon and whether there was a firearm there. The lawyer recalled that he had gotten the latter, believing that she intended to kill some scoundrel. In addition, Sherry asked not to bring the weapon by courier, but for Howard to bring it personally. She wrote about Eden Lancaster, who was assigned to the police station in Brunel. The lawyer thought about it. She's writing about Mad Dog Benton? That's true. Harrison heard that this cop was secretly digging under him. Apparently, he knows about the arms smuggling and he may suspect Howard. Eden realized that the lawyer was acting on orders from Sherry and went to Brunel about it. It didn't matter to the lawyer if the cop tried to pin him down, but if he went for the lady, that was a different matter. Sherry is a dear family member to Howard, so he will protect her at all costs. He first saw her when he was studying at the Imperial Boarding Academy. One day, he was told to say hello to some people. Sinclair family contacted the boy. They took him under their sponsorship and secured his future. One day, a girl from the family stood in front of him. The boy bowed, introduced himself, and thanked them for their support. The elders asked the boy not to say that. The adults said, "He is now Sherry's older brother." That was the name of this girl. That day they met for the first time. Then Harrison realized what family is. Sherry confessed that she always wanted a brother. The girl, whose parents were too busy with work, said those words without putting any meaning into them. When Howard heard them, he vowed to consider the girl his sister. His sister, a bond stronger than blood. But the stable life collapsed overnight. The Sinclair couple died in an accident, and the girl was left with no one. When she tried to forget and had fun for days, he protected her. Harrison did not interfere in her life directly, but was there, protecting her from danger and looking after her. The best reward for the guy is a happy and bright smile of Sherry, who knows no worries. Recently, she had undergone changes, and the lady began to bombard Howard with various assignments. The girl's gaze showed determination. Well, her brother had no choice but to carry out orders. If Sherry wants the lawyer to deliver the gun personally, he needs to take care of security. He remembered the gunbroker Jose. Where is he? An aristocratic-looking young man was sitting in the office reading a newspaper. A servant addressed him and called him, "Your Majesty." He did not answer, but the boy knew that his master was pretending. The aristocrat asked a servant named Alderson to get to the point. He began to tell about a certain case that the master had instructed him to investigate. This nobleman is Theodore Graydon. He is the first heir, the crown prince of the kingdom of Graydon. Thanks to his outstanding appearance and talent for diplomacy, the aristocrat managed to win the trust of many supporters. Alderson is no less devoted to the crown prince. Theodore wonders if his servant has located Eden, Lancaster, and Knox Ludfordshire? Yes, they are now located in the town of Brunel. Theodore was surprised to hear the name of the town. The servant confirmed that Eden had been transferred to the local police station, and Knox had gone there at the request of Lancaster himself. Not everything is simple here, thought the crown prince. He demanded that Alderson find out more about all this. Surely there is something much more hidden behind the actions of these two. The servant is interested in why the master is interested in these persons. Alderson reminded about Knox belonging to the Ludfordshire family, who are drawn to the side of Prince Lloyd, and Eden to Lancaster. The crown prince recently mentioned the incident with the mysterious disease in the land of Duke Casey, and the latter is a vassal of the Lancaster family. The case was suspiciously hushed up then. Theodore remembered, the influence of the second Prince Lloyd has been growing lately, and the crown prince, as the heir, intends to gather around himself as many people as possible. Theodore knows Eden well, and he is very different from the Duke of Lancaster, his father. He is stubborn and follows his own compass, but his temper is explosive. No wonder this man was nicknamed Mad Dog. The crown prince repeated once more. He needed to know why the cop and the doctor had gone to Brunel. They hadn't gone to the same location without having a good reason. Something was wrong here. Meanwhile, in Brunel, Lady Sinclair was pulling a cart of weapons in front of local residents. People watched and marveled at the strength of the lady from the abandoned place. The girl admired the weather, but she was not the only one in the center of attention at that time. Knox gathered city girls around him. He had recently arrived in Brunel, and the ladies were hanging on him in bunches. But it's not the girls' fault. Knox is a doctor, a cutie, and a flatterer. In the novella, he was given the role of the second male hero, second only to Crown Prince Theodore. While Sherry was thinking, a police officer, Eden, approached her Lancaster, who looked questioningly at the weapon. The girl explained. The goods were purchased legally. She was going to use them for self-defense. The cop asked, "Isn't that a lot of weapons for regular self-defense?" Lady Sinclair thought he would start asking why so many and quickly retreated, saying goodbye to the guy. But he didn't even try to leave her. Mr. Lancaster asked if the lady needed help in the mansion today. For example, chopping wood or something like that. Sherry reported that the law enforcement officer had chopped wood for 2 whole years in advance. Eden was insistent that she be allowed to help with something else. The girl understood why the guy was so eager to help. Knox intervened in their conversation, wanting to be the third in the conversation. The doctor closed the clinic early today, as he had already treated all the patients. Eden began to take out his service weapon, but the medic asked him to put it away with a smile. He just wanted to talk to the lady. The cop noticed that the lady would decide for herself who to talk to. The girl decided to go to her room before the two started fighting. The men exchanged harsh words and recommended each other to leave the city before Sherry got tired of it. She turned around and promised to kick them both out if they didn't shut up. Unlike them, the girl was busy with a bunch of things. Suddenly, Sherry heard a very familiar voice. It was the maid Suzanne, standing outside the house with the suitcase. The lady was glad to see her. She hoped that the maid would become a guardian angel for the mistress here and save her from such hell. Joyfully, the mistress began to ask Suzanne how she got here and whether the journey had been tiring. The maid's journey was wonderful, but she was surprised when she learned that Brunel was so far from the transport station. Although it was bearable, and from that moment they were together again. The maid wondered, looking at Knox and Eden, who these unknown people were. But Sherry, delighted by her arrival, asked the girl to forget about them and bring the things into the mansion. Together they began this task. The policeman and the doctor offered their services at the same time, but Sherry advised the first to work on the wall and the second to grow medicinal herbs. They had to meekly agree to the girl's demands. Suzanne was surprised by the surroundings of the huge house. Although at first glance it seemed to her like a mansion with ghosts. The mistress completely forgot about the facade. But then the maid appreciated her room, comfortably furnished. Sherry noted that her Suzanne deserved the best conditions. The women, going out into the street, again paid attention to Knox and Eden. The latter grabbed the doctor by the chest. The lady does not understand how such people were made the leading characters of the novel. The mistress of the house advised the maid not to pay attention to them and pointed to an observation post near the stairs, from where a wonderful view opens up. Suzanne saw the lady's preparations. Is she preparing for war? Sherry knew the maid had hit the nail on the head, but she refuted her argument out loud. The maid reported Harrison's request to call him. Upon hearing this request, Lady Sinclair immediately rushed to the police station. Eden followed her along the way. Lancaster, which the girl didn't like. Why was he following her? At the station, the man said they didn't allow just anyone to use the phone. She reminded him how she had called in Benton without any problems. Eden admitted that the local policeman allowed Sherry to ring at the station because of her famous name. The lady smiled and said that she was Mrs. Sinclair. An inspector appeared in the room. He wondered why Eden was there. According to Lancaster, this citizen, that's what he called her, intends to use the official phone of law enforcement agencies. The inspector has nothing against this. He himself lets locals into the station from time to call their relatives. Smiling, Sherry looked at her companion. Does that mean he doesn't mind either? Reluctantly, he agreed. Since the inspector allowed it, he won't interfere. Before the cop had time to explain the rules, the lady was on the phone. When Howard answered, Sherry informed him that the maid Suzanne had asked him to call the lawyer back. She wanted to know when he would finally be leaving for Brunel. Harrison, meanwhile, was carrying out her orders and would be delayed for 4 days. He will be in town in about 4 days. Yes, the lady will have to wait, but the lawyer will still come and inspect the furnishings of the house, which she boasts about so much. Sherry is surprised. She is not a child. What inspection? Lawyer Harrison also expects the lady to give a detailed explanation of the $100 million gold loan. Considering the person mentioned in the letter, her request is difficult to fulfill. And don't provoke Mad Dog. Sherry thought about sending Eden back to the capital. He turned out to be a dangerous opponent. The girl asked the lawyer out loud to take care of himself. Yes, she takes care of herself too. And yes, no one was looking for her, except Suzanne. Finally, the girl asked Howard Harrison to eat hot food 3 times a day. She hung up. Now her refuge was missing a big brother. All was well. She was finally at peace. Eden Lancaster asked if Harrison was coming to Brunel too. Sherry couldn't understand why he was so concerned. The policeman was simply interested in the reason for the lawyer's visit and nothing more. The freedom-loving girl asked the persistent policeman not to show his unhealthy interest in her family members anymore. She considers it rude to ask Ice and about her personal life. Eden Lancaster watched her go and thought that he had made a mistake again. He suddenly remembered Aurora. He hoped she was okay. At home, his sister was at a loss as to how long her brother would look for her savior. The girl was worried about the lack of calls and letters about her brother. She really wants to express her gratitude to that mysterious lady who saved her. The maid is sure that the gentleman is in Brunel because of urgent business. Aurora doesn't know where it is, but the maid explains. Brunel is a small town, more like a village. There isn't even a station there. The girl suddenly has an idea. Maybe she should go to this settlement too? Aurora was sitting in the office and talking to her father. He forbade her to leave because the state of the yard was currently unsettled. The girl would be safe at home. She was surprised. She was an adult and was under house arrest? Aurora asked. What about her older brother? Her father replied that he had been sent to Brunel's police station. Now it was clear why he did not visit his sister. The Duke asked his daughter if she knew why her brother had rebelled against him. She agrees. Eden Lancaster never really listened to his parents. Is Dad really worried about his son? It's so unlike him. The man is sure that his offspring should have long since come out of puberty. According to the Duke, the son is already a mature person. Aurora is surprised. She did not know how worried her father was. But there is a simple way to solve this problem. Stop controlling her brother. The girl thinks that her father will turn into a villain so soon. He should be more careful now. The Duke is disappointed that his children have grown up like this. But it doesn't matter. The daughter should not leave her parents' house. Aurora pretended to understand everything. But how could she go to Brunel without her father guessing? And there were 12 days left until the apocalypse. Madame Sinclair's large mansion already had everything thanks to her hard work. The locals just take her for the town crazy and have given her a bunch of nicknames, Star Lady and others. The lesson was held with the participation of Knox Ludforshire, who asked the student to concentrate. Sherry said in her heart that she hated studying. The doctor immediately reminded her. Who was it that was knocking on his door early in the morning and asking him to start studying? The lady agreed. This knowledge would come in handy when the world collapsed in 12 days. Knox didn't think the lady would master the lesson so quickly. She reminded him of her extensive practice, and she had always liked medicine. Sherry thought to herself that such an excuse would work. She wouldn't tell him that she had learned this in her past life. The doctor was perplexed. Who would have known that Sherry was into such things? This makes him think that buying a house and growing the Elphinus grass serves some purpose. It is not surprising that Eden Lancaster treats the girl. Sherry Sinclair was tired of listening to his suspicions. The medic replied that this was precisely what fascinated him about her. It was the first time he had encountered a situation where a lady did not fall in love with him at first sight. The girl doesn't understand. Did Knox decide to tease her like that? He interrupted the student's thoughts. They need to move on to practicing first aid on a dummy. The guy will teach Sherry to treat serious wounds, although she is unlikely to need it. The lady smiled. I wonder what they wanted from her. The doctor asked her to support the mannequin's legs for a while. She grabbed the limbs and accidentally broke them. Were these objects always so fragile? According to Knox Ludforshire, the dummy's legs are specially made strong so that they don't break even in the event of a strong impact. The products themselves are strong and expensive inventory. Sherry wished the dummy to rest in peace. A happy fate awaits him in his new life. The student and the mentor laughed at these words. Now Lady Sinclair knows how to give first aid. What a relief for her. And the newspapers wrote about the murder of the Casey family. And it was not just a brutal crime, but the beginning of the end. Soon the virus will spread throughout the capital. And Brunel is living out his last peaceful days. Sherry scrolled through the memories in her head and tried to understand if there was a way to save everyone from death. If you think about it sensibly, then Sherry Sinclair can do little but protect those she can, hoping to survive the apocalypse. A man approaches her. He brings the things the lady asked for. The girl looked at the guy, but there was nothing near him. The man explained that the order was at the entrance to the city. There was a lot of stuff there, and this visiting salesman couldn't handle it alone. Sherry was surprised. Was he the only one carrying the goods? The man had originally traveled with a porter, but the porter had gotten hurt on the way here. He had wasted his money on him. So he went to Lady Sinclair, hoping to find some strong men to help him. Eden suddenly appeared, ready to deliver the things. The girl is unhappy. Him again? And how is it that the policeman appears out of thin air every time? The arriving merchant was very surprised by the cop. But there is nothing surprising in such a reaction. Everyone behaves like this when they see him for the first time. Eden asked, "What does he need to move?" Sherry Sinclair and the seller looked at each other. "Chickens, of course," the lady replied. The three of them carried boxes of live chickens. Sherry carried several in her arms. Eden Lancaster is surprised. This girl is something else. She is full of surprises. The girl is a little angry. What did she do wrong again? The merchant wonders why a well-bred lady needs so many chickens, and the girl needs them for breeding. Haven't these men ever wanted to watch the chickens? The guys were confused. The lady realized that her deception was too obvious. While the process of moving the birds to the hen house was underway, the policeman asked the lady, "Is she really that same Sherry Sinclair? Maybe there is a clone next to Eden, grown by a real aristocrat in the dungeons?" The girl looked at the guy skeptically. He is clearly telling her some nonsense. His words do not correspond to reality. The persistent law enforcement officer did not let up and asked to explain how Lady Sinclair got involved in breeding chickens. The girl asked to show her hobby at least a little respect. Is such an occupation really so unusual for her? Okay, Eden allowed it. But let him explain the presence of incredible power in her. The guy had never heard that Sherry had such a talent. The lady is not lost here either. It's all about the vitamins she took in childhood. Sherry is sure that her interlocutor is aware of how society treats strong women. He agrees, but the girl always wanted to become a true aristocrat. Suzanne joined their conversation. The maid brought the things that the lady had left in the capital. Suzanne leaned towards the lady and whispered. She really intended to take her away so that the policeman would not bother her anymore. Sherry almost screamed with joy, but closed her mouth in time. This beloved maid was definitely her guardian angel. Before they had time to sort out the suitcases, a frantic wild cry was heard coming from the mansion. They ran into the house and a terrible picture opened up before their eyes. A terrible monster attacked the chicken delivery man. Sherry was shocked. Why was he here so early? Eden asked her to leave, but the girl was already rushing forward to the injured man and the monster. Lady Sinclair understood. She had to kill the monster. And it was clearly brought in the maid's bag. Eden and Suzanne were standing behind her, but the lady did not see them. Everything went blurry in her eyes. But she killed the monster and felt its remains on herself. Her policeman friend looked at Sherry coldly. Looking at his face, she realized that the interrogation would continue until she explained everything. She would have to fool the cop until she could. And then, we'll see. The girl made a somewhat naive face and asked if all her comrades were safe. She did not even know about the existence of bears in this area. Eden suddenly shouted, demanding that the lady be careful. Behind her stood the same monster, who, as it turned out, did not die. Feeling his terrible breath, Sherry thought about what a stupid death she received, but the monster suddenly fell to the ground. He was killed by Wanilla with a shotgun. The huntress asked if Miss Sinclair was okay, which surprised her. And what was Lady Laskin doing here? She explained that she had gone hunting, noticed the bear, and went after it. Wanilla asked again. It was a bear, right? She would have gotten a lot of money for it. Everyone turned their attention to the man who had brought the chickens. He seemed delirious and blamed the devil for what had happened. Sherry realized that he was starting to panic, and soon there would be even more people like him in the area. Eden wanted to take the unfortunate man and take him to the doctor, but Lady Sinclair screamed loudly, demanding that he not approach the monster's victim. A man was bitten by a monster that was in the house. Soon the victim would become one himself. The girl held the cop's hand and asked him not to approach the wounded man. He did not understand why she was behaving like that. In any situation, people's lives are a priority. Sherry will call someone for help now and let Eden go home for now. He didn't understand how the girl could say such things now. She hates touching the wounded so much? Is that all? The lady didn't understand why the policeman wasn't listening to her now. That man couldn't be saved. And strange things were starting to happen to the merchant, but they weren't looking at him yet. Wanilla volunteered to take the guy to the hospital. Sherry Sinclair tried to stop her, but encountered resistance from the former owner of the mansion. The huntress said that she had no idea she would see such qualities in her, because you can't do that to a comrade in trouble. Is Sherry worried that the chicken seller will infect her with his poverty? The girl who tried to save her friends demanded to be heard. The maid Suzanne, who was standing aside, pointed to the wounded seller. A pair of nasty paws with creepy fingers grew on him. This man, who had not yet turned into a monster, looked at those around him. In horror, Wanilla asked what was happening to him. The transformation of the human monster was not yet complete. Sherry jumped up to the creature and struck with her sword. It should have been killed right now. The weapon did not bring the desired result. The monster's head was strong. If he doesn't deal with the monster now, it might be too late. A shot rang out and the monster lay lifeless on the ground. Everyone looked at Eden. He was the one who shot the terrible creature. The monster quickly caught fire after its death. Looking at the fire, Eden asked Sherry if she knew that everything would be like this. She had to say no. Wanilla recalled how the owner of the house asked everyone not to approach the wounded man. The huntress is sure that Ms. Sinclair knows much more about this than they do. Sherry explained that she simply felt something strange about the man, and that Bear also looked bad, as if it had an infection. Wanilla bowed to the girl and apologized for saying some rude things to her earlier. Sherry understands everything. In this situation, no one would like her behavior. Police Officer Eden also apologizes. He did not assess the situation very sensibly. The lady accepted the apology and admitted that she herself had been so scared that she had to act reflexively. Everyone looked again at the creature in the fire. Who was it anyway? If the maid hadn't brought the sherry bag with the cricket bat here? If Lady Sinclair hadn't managed to stop Eden and Wanilla, one of them would be burning in the fire right now. The girl can't let her guard down any longer. The policeman said that he had seen such a monster somewhere before. Wanilla wondered where. He remembered an episode near a house on Rue Nocien, 61 in the capital. Then everything went without victims, and the monster died before it had time to come out. The people around asked. Then the monster was shot by the police, but Eden answered negatively. The terrible creature was killed by a mysterious girl who eliminated the creature with her bare hands. The cop pulled out that brooch. It belonged to the mysterious lady. The man hadn't seen her face then, but she might shed some light on what was going on. Wanilla looked at the initials on the brooch. In her opinion, the first letters on the thing indicated the name of Lady Sinclair. She smiled stupidly. Oh, what a fascinating story. She read about it in the newspapers. It turns out that the heroine of that case was simply her namesake. Well, so what? There are many people in the world with the same initials. The incident at Notion, 61, is still being written about in the press. The huntress disagrees. The newspapers are reporting on Eden and Sherry and the scandal with them. They write about their passionate love and their joint escape to Brunel. The policeman and the owner of the mansion looked at this in surprise and did not believe their own ears. The girl and the cop were drawn into such a scandal. So, someone in this wilderness found out about them. Someone bribed the locals? Knox approached the girl and asked where she was going. Lady Sinclair thought that he was the culprit. She answered that she was going to the station in Quinta to meet a guest. When asked who Sherry was waiting for, she said it was none of his business. And the lady would never allow this guy to sell information about her to the tabloids again. Now Knox was surprised. He would never do that. Reporters would have immediately rushed here, and the girl and the doctor would not have been able to live together. He expressed joy that at least here the trains run reliably. Sherry panicked and didn't understand what he was talking about now. Had the train schedule changed? She was sitting on a bench at the station. Knox was telling her about the road from Westmore Station being closed. They were turning back everyone who was traveling to the capital in a carriage. It was strange why the path was blocked. The medic didn't know the reasons for this. The girl decided to leave. She had some kind of uneasy feeling. There were 10 days until the apocalypse. Why couldn't she calm down? And the newspapers were full of headlines about her and Eden. There is no mention of monsters or a blocked road to Westmore in the newspapers. Someone is hiding the truth. Sherry Sinclair was riding home in a carriage. When her Harrison arrived, she had to find out everything from him. The lawyer never arrived, although the lady was waiting for him on the platform. He was supposed to show up today, but it didn't work out. The girl hopes he's okay. The coachman noticed the lady's concern. He asked if she wanted to go back to the station. Suzanne was waiting for her at home. She had to go to her. The lady asked the driver to take her to Brunel, home. She thought there were 10 days until the apocalypse, but when she arrived, she realized how naively she had reasoned. The town was already gripped by the horror she had been expecting for so long. Pools of blood were spreading underfoot. The terrible cries of people trying to save themselves were heard everywhere. And just yesterday, there had been a fun fair in the center of the village. But the terrible day had finally arrived. People asked to call the police, but Sherry knew that law enforcement would not help here. From now on, the number of infected people would grow so fast that even she would not have time to do anything. Brunel will be captured by monsters in the blink of an eye. The way to the mansion is blocked. She needs to get there quickly. And suddenly she heard the voice of Eden. He was trying to drive the survivors to safe places, risking being bitten. Sherry expected him to rush to help, but so soon. A brave law enforcement officer must stay alive no matter what. Without realizing his own importance, this brave man is now saving others. The girl understands him, but now is not the time for reasoning. If the policeman dies, everything will end. She will not allow this to happen. Finally, Lancaster noticed her and asked if the lady was hurt. Eden found time for a nice chat. The girl called the cop to follow her into the mansion. She is sure that Eden realized that the opponents nearby are no longer people. They have turned into the same monsters that they saw here earlier. The policeman understands that everything is turned upside down, but he will not run away. There are still living people in this small town. He cares about them. The girl thinks there is no time for all sorts of bickering. Sherry had no choice. She knocked the guy unconscious and dragged him along. He would be furious when he woke up, but there was nothing to be done. The problems would be solved as they came. They were approaching the mansion. It was a pity that they couldn't save all the townspeople. Sherry was surprised when she noticed the open gate. But first, she lowered Eden to the ground. The lady had installed the stone gate specifically to prevent unauthorized persons from getting inside. If they are not opened from the inside, the stone from the outside will not yield to the pressure. But there is no need to get worked up now. The main thing is that they got home safe and sound. On the balcony of the house, the lady looked at the burning town. Why is everything happening so fast? The girl saw how the creatures that had recently been people crowded at the gates of her huge cottage. She was glad that there was stonework. It should hold up. The monsters wouldn't break into the house. Sherry looked at the lying policeman. The problem was to drag him here. He would definitely try to kill the girl when he woke up. It was better to save Eden by hiding him behind the walls of the mansion than to let him die. The brave policeman must live until a vaccine is invented. You could say that the lady is about to save the world. She was walking through the house and heard a sound. She didn't like it. Is that Suzanne wandering the corridors of the palace? The girl went to the door and decided to open it. 1, 2, 3. Before she could finish counting, a monster burst out of the room. He came in through the open gate. It was too dangerous to let him escape, so the creature had to be killed. The creature jumped on Lady Sinclair, but a quick reaction and a blow with a sharp axe saved her. She had already gotten used to killing these monsters. Sherry Sinclair sat down on the floor. Was this really going to be her daily routine for the next couple of years? Fortunately, her enormous strength does not do anything. Otherwise, things would be bad. But there is no time for reasoning. The girl needs to find Suzanne. There are no human remains in sight, so the maid must be alive.